Hello and welcome back. So I'm here. It's Saturday evening. I'm in my bedroom. This is my little corner of the world. I just want to welcome you and let you know what's going on. Currently, I don't have my own place to live. I do have a beautiful room that my sister and her husband have allowed me to move into. Um, this whole journey started back on, well, what led to my current position. Started October 30th when I went to my husband of, at the time it was 25 years. Last year was our 25th wedding anniversary year. And I asked him for a divorce. Um, it was hard. And given my financial situation, I had done the homework and got the templates and drew up a non contested divorce uh, to be filed in the county we lived here in Indiana. And one thing led to another, and there's a reason why I asked for a divorce. And so it's been an ongoing battle with me representing myself pro se and him hiring a nice attorney. Um, but uh, in the midst of all of this, uh, I'm still standing, I'm still here, and I have a lot to share. But I figured let's just be honest from the get go. And I had talked about doing a different format. So I'm going to go back to my days when I first started going to AA. I had ended up in rehab with a crack overdose. I was in the hospital. In a hospital, I didn't even know where I was geographically. Um, but I woke up in the hospital, and then it was just a hard road. And I ended up going to rehab because I had some things going on that I didn't really want to deal with, and I'd never been to rehab before. And quite frankly, that last time I was smoking the crack and at the drug house, I didn't want to be there. And so, unbeknownst to me, cocaine addiction messes with the wiring of your brain. And it was basically, I had no free will, and I was just this machine chasing that first good high. So, we're going to fast forward to AA. um, I got out of rehab. I ended up divorcing my second husband. No, my first husband. I am so sorry when you have so many. No, I divorced my first husband because we weren't. He was an alcoholic, and of course I was the drug addict, and it just wasn't healthy for us. So we separated and got divorced, and I started my journey into AA and met lots of lovely people and got a lot of um, good information and stuff that to this day I'm able to use and apply the steps to different parts of my life. Um, Along the way, I've had to make some really hard decisions, and I've had to break outside of norms as far as when you join AA and you start working the steps, they encourage you to develop a relationship with a God of your understanding. And when I first arrived at AA, the only God I knew about was the wrathful, vindictive, hateful God of evangelical Christianity. And it never sat well with me, but I knew the importance, and I wanted to get sober enough, so I just went ahead and followed the God of my childhood, I guess, and my upbringing. Um, and it, it was good. It worked, and I was cruising along, and 5 years in to the program, I started doing my second, or was it my first? It was my first fifth step. And I really struggled with the whole higher power concept. I understood why it was necessary, because my ego can't think I can handle everything and I can solve everything, because obviously my participation in that program is the evidence, all the evidence I needed. I had no clue. So I worked the steps and I talked with my sponsor, and she laid it out really, really cool. She was Native American and part of a tribe up in Michigan, and I loved her dearly. And she was my nanny after I left my second husband. I get so confused. So the first husband was alcoholic. The second husband I met in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he ended up being schizophrenic. So there's a whole world of different stories there. But anyway, I'm talking with my sponsor, and I explained to her how it never sat well with me that Christianity was so patriarchal. I remember when I was a little girl, I think I was like 6 years old, when I heard the story of Abraham being told by God to, sacrifice Isaac as proof that he loved God. And I remember at that time thinking, man, my mommy would never do that, because my mommy loves me. It doesn't matter what anybody else says, my mommy loves me, and she would never do that. So that was kind of the basis foundation of what I was operating under. And then you add in to the fact that there was a lot of abuse and sexual misconduct in my home, perpetrated by my malignant narcissist dad. And everybody always says, well, your earthly father is a symbol of your heavenly father, and it was just all a lot of BS as far as I was concerned, because I could tell my dad's words never matched his true intentions, and I saw his evil. So the whole God concept just really I couldn't rely on him, because what I understood of him, I didn't want to emulate. I wanted peace, and I wanted love, and I wanted, more than anything, I wanted to be sober, because I could see where my life could go if I was sober. So I struggled. And then I divorced the second husband, and kind of quit going to AA for a while. Actually, I think that was the last time. I only went to 1 or 2 meetings afterwards, but it wasn't. I wasn't going there anymore for the benefit of it. I actually went for somebody else, just trying to be a comfort and do my job as a missionary, I guess. And then after I divorced the second husband, who was schizophrenic, I got a bunch of Pell Grants and government assistance. And by this time, I had a 3-month-old and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old. My 3 boys and my beautiful girl. And I was single. And I had gotten on public housing, which was a godsend. And then I signed up for college, and I got myself a little car, and I was looking for a job and ended up running into the guy where I went to do karaoke at the bowling alley bar, and I ran into the manager out at school on campus, And he asked how I was going, and I said, well, if you know anybody who's hiring, I could really use a job. And he kind of chuckled and he said, can you cook? And I said, well, I have 4 kids and I don't believe in canned ravioli. So, yeah, I can cook. So I was immediately hired to be the short order cook. And so I went to work that Friday night uh, at the bowling alley as short order cook. And I met the head cook, and she was a lovely woman. And she had just started exploring alternative religions. And we kind of fell upon the same alternative religion together. And that's how I started the spiritual path I'm on now. Um, Over the years, I've had to tweak it. And something I learned in A is you take what you can use and you throw out the rest. Because I know for me, if I go to try to check off all the boxes, some of those boxes don't apply. So um, I started taking from all sorts of religions. I took uh, information from Buddhism, from Christianity, of course, because although I didn't like his dad, I thought Jesus was pretty cool, and I truly believe Jesus was the first empath. So, we'll explore that story later, but I just kind of gleaned everything, and I took principles from AA because I realized you could work those 12 steps and apply it to anything. The principles are an attitude of gratitude, being accountable for your actions, and knowing you can't deal with it, that you have to rely on a higher power for your spirituality so that you have the faith and the strength to do the work that's necessary to not be a practicing alcoholic or drug addict. So over the years, I just have all these philosophies and ideas, and with the permission that AA had given me for a God of my own understanding, I have kind of put together and made a custom program. I practice now. I practice a spirituality program. It's earth based, and there's a lot of it for me. I'm very drawn to the old ways and my ancestors, and I've kind of always felt we were gypsies. So it's just been kind of my mom divorced my dad, and when I was in my early 20s, I think I was 22, and she started practicing a different religion, and he just went full force into the evangelical Christianity. So, but I just started working this new religion I found, which was called magic, spelled with a K. And I'll tell you what I liked about it. Although I've never been Catholic, I was Greek Orthodox for a while. When my father was looking for a church, and it was in the late 70s, and we came across Greek Orthodox, and I loved it. I had already read all the books about Catholicism, as far as, do black patent leather shoes really reflect up, and Billy Joel was one of my favorite artists, and but I loved the pomp and circumstance. I loved the incense burning. I liked the pageantry. And I just felt like doing something that had been done for thousands of years just connected me. So although I didn't agree with the theology, I really missed that. I don't know how to put it. I don't know, but there's a comfort in knowing you're doing things that other people have done for years, hundreds of years, and it worked for them. So I kind of combined my whole AA experience and background, what little different backgrounds I had in religion, and started practicing magic. Now, my mom is a very intelligent woman, and she has had a problem with that ever since I started practicing. Um, she's a firm believer in science, and if you can't recreate it, then it probably doesn't exist. And she, I realized within the last 6 months, she's didn't have a full understanding of what I was doing and why it gave me comfort and peace and faith and hope. So I thought I'd share what I told her I think it was at the beginning of summer. Um, I said, you know, as an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, or a recovering child of abuse, recovering anything, recovering human being, I am not afforded the luxury of not having a higher power. And in order for me to maintain a life of sobriety and healing, I have to have something to believe in. And so then I shared with her my memories of growing up in religion and all the different things and some correlations I made that pretty abstract, but they always rang true for me. And so I said to her, I know you don't believe in it, but I don't need anybody else to believe what I believe and what works for me. The thing I like about paganism, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, there's this rule, and it says, "And harm you none, do what you will." And I mean, that's pretty much the golden rule, right? You treat people the way you want to be treated, and you honor, their autonomy and their personhood and their beliefs. Just because you don't believe like I do doesn't mean I can't learn from you, you know. And if we have an open-mindedness and a willingness, see, because that's the key. When I got sober, it was my attitude of willingness, because my sponsor told me one time, "What are you willing to do to be sober?" And that's actually a deep question that they ask people. And so I thought about it, and I took a couple days. And I had to get to the point where it was like, well, if she tells me to stand on my head in the corner for 6 hours a day, I guess that's what I'm going to do, because I want what she has pretty badly. I don't know the grammar. And so there was my willingness. And later on in my life, after I went through my spiritual awakening last year, I've noticed if I check myself, because trust me, I'm going through some really hard times with this divorce. And then my familiar died last year in September, coming up on his year anniversary of his death. And there were suspicious circumstances around that. And we're not going to get into that today, but right now, between the divorce and some personal issues within my extended family, and it's just a bunch, and it's overwhelming. And one of the things I decided last year when I had my spiritual awakening and I came out on the other end, I decided I was willing to do whatever it took. Whatever it took. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I can't change my mental illness because it's chemically part of me. But I can heal my mind, and I could heal my heart. And I don't mean that in a medical way. I mean in a spiritual way. And so I started dabbling again. last year in my magical arts, and I started reading my tarot cards and started doing some shadow work, which is all just facing my dark side, kind of like Luke Skywalker there in the cave on Dagobah. Um, and I started journaling again, like nonstop. I went through like four journals. I'm on my fifth one right now, and it hasn't even been a year. So there's been a lot of writing and reading and watching videos and just looking for anything that I can use. Um, I was proving to myself that I was, because my whole life I listened to everybody else tell me who I should be, from the church telling me I should be pure and pristine and shouldn't have premarital sex, and a woman should submit to her husband. And I had to break out of those molds and out of that old programming, and that's how I came to find my own voice. Um, was by being willing to be socially outcast, not only by my family but by society as a whole. Um, because it just got to the point that I was so miserable, and I was isolated in this tiny home that we were being evicted from, and my life was just miserable. And I kept waiting for somebody to show up and rescue me. And then, a week before my Orion died, I had a play date with my grandson, who was just 2 at the time. And his mommy and daddy, my son and daughter in law, were planting trees and kind of doing their own thing. And I took a big container of my 220 every color in the rainbow Crayola markers and a big giant pad of paper, because as an artist, that's not hard for me to come by. And we went over, and I went over there, and I was alone. Um, and I just sat and colored all afternoon with my grandson. Um, and my child within, my inner child, she came that day, and she reached through 55 years of what has been my past, and she took my hand and showed me my future, which was just sitting there coloring with my grandson. And that's how my life could be anytime I wanted to. All I had to do was be willing to start listening to her, my intuition, my inner voice. And so I went home and I started doing the research, and I typed up a divorce agreement. I knew we had to wait 60 days and it would cost $177. So on the 30th of October, I had all the paperwork planned. I had waited 2 weeks because I wanted to have a last Halloween party together. Halloween had always been a really fun time for us, and we really enjoyed it back then. So I thought, I just want, it's our 25th year. I want one more Halloween party. And so we went to the party, and then my cat died, and it just was kind of like, well, I guess we went to the party after my cat died. But anyway, so October 30th, I called our youngest son and told him what I was doing, and asked him to just come sit and be a neutral party and be there just in case, because I wasn't sure how my husband would react. And so then that's when I asked him for divorce. I moved out of the house. We were renting for me. I moved out December 3rd. Have lived in one other place besides my sister's, and that's just a whole grand adventure. And February 9th, I had surgery to have my rebuilt shoulder rebuilt again and reattached to my body because I had obliterated my rotator cuff and had to have it all taken care of. 6 hours after what was supposed to be a 3 to 4 hour surgery, the surgeon came out and explained to my mom that the reason it took so long is that they had not noticed when they were doing all the x-rays and MRIs and things like that, that actually what was holding my shoulder to the rest of my body was my skin and a frayed little tendon. So I guess when I said I was in pain, I really was in pain because I packed up that whole house of my stuff and moved it pretty basically by myself. So that which doesn't kill you, right? So anyway, I guess to wrap it all up, I wanted you to get to know a little bit about me and my story before I just keep bouncing around with these other kernels of wisdom. I thought I would give you kind of a foundation and explain to you that as much as I would love to have a steady schedule and a release, every week at Sunday 9 a.m., you can tune in to hear me. This last week has shown me that my life's not working out that way right now. Been doing a lot of out of nowhere introspection and inner spiritual work and remembering things and discovering things and reconnecting to who I am and learning how to live like that. Because I'll tell you what, it's a whole new world, but it's so worth it. And I'll close with this story. Last year, shortly after my spiritual awakening happened into April, early May, and it was a harrowing experience physically and mentally. But I came through and I was thinking about it and I was journaling, about my progress so far. And the thought came to me that I have been suicidal my whole life. That always seemed like well, if this doesn't work out, at least I can do that and finally have peace kind of thing. And I realized last year, before I even got to go color with my grandson, that's where the idea of my YouTube channel was born. Because I thought, well, I'm not going to kill myself because I have so much to live for. And then I thought about it, and I thought of all the different experiences I've had and all the different statistics I am. Teenage pregnancy, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism, narcissistic abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, you name it. Any one of those things, I think the world would more than be gracious enough and have understanding if I just completely shut down. And for a long time, I lived in that space until last summer. And last summer, when I first started thinking about this channel, I thought, I can't kill myself. I've come 57 years and through all this crap. And maybe my higher purpose is not to just sit around and feel sorry for myself and, just kind of get by and pop the meds they tell me to pop and believe the stories they tell me to believe. Maybe it's about sharing my own story and my experience, strength, and hope. Because I'm unique and I'm individual. But I know everything I've gone through, somebody can relate at some point they've known the darkness I've known. And I just want to be here for that person. And I'm going to be real. I haven't got it all figured out. All I know is right now my head's a lot quieter. My heart's not heavy. And every day I get to live a new future, which is going to be the rest of my life. Because I made a choice to listen to me. And that's the purpose of this community, is because I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like as an insomniac to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning just wishing you could get some sleep and turn the circus and squirrel cage, as my second husband used to call it, turn that off for the night just to get some sleep. And I've always had a belief, my whole life, I've always believed if I can do something, everybody else should be able to do. And we'll talk about that a different time, but specifically what I'm talking about here, specifically about healing and not being alone and living for a higher purpose, you can believe me. That's real. That's honest. And that's why I don't want to monetize this page. I've set up the little Buy Me a Cup of Coffee page, and there's links in the description of my YouTube page here, and I try to post things from that, but I'm really not going to push that on you. I did make a little post about you want to buy a duck, and I've kind of refined that, and I've decided that although you're not going to get extra benefits no matter how much money you send me, if you do send me a $20 cup of coffee or more, then you will receive a piece of my artwork. I've been an artist my entire life, and there is nothing I love more than creating art and showing my whimsical perspective and what a beautiful world this is. And when I made this decision last year and got injured, I was not able to display this year. I did not attend any festivals. I didn't meet any new people. And I miss that a lot. That's my connection. The children are my muses. And there's not a greater feeling than to create something and have a little boy come into your tent and point to that painting and ask you how much it is. And you can see that $20 bill in his hand. And so I told him it was 10, just because he came by himself and picked out that piece of art. And so I want to share that vision of the world with you. If you go to my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, you make a $20 or more donation, it's going to have a drop down menu. And I need you to put, I want to buy a duck, your first name, and your email address. And I will get that, and I will contact you, and I will mail you a piece of my art. It's all I can do. Gives me an opportunity to share my vision and my creativity with the world, with you specifically, because if you're tuned in, I know you're going to love it. And you are, I had initially said you could do it one time, but F that. Right now, I need people to paint for. I need to share my joy and my happiness and my peace. So you can donate as often as you like, and every time it's $20 or more, just go ahead and send me your first name, you want to buy a duck, and your email. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to talk about money anymore, because that's just not me. I have something to share, and it was given freely to me. And so there will never be any added benefits. Everything I do, everything I release, if I end up doing worksheets or whatever, Those will all be available. All you have to do is subscribe so you're notified when my crazy schedule allows me to post something that I feel is worth sharing. Um, and in the meantime, you just have a great rest of your summer. And I'll see you, I would say probably in about a week maybe. Maybe sooner, maybe a little bit later, but you take care of you.